as a business owner, you can have a systems-centered business and not be a detail-orientated systems person, but you can still build that business.
You work hard in your business. On the Profit by Design podcast, we ask the big question: what has your business done for you lately? Hi, I'm Dr. Sabrina Starling, the business psychologist, the author of How to Hire the Best, and your co-host on the Profit by Design podcast. Weekly, my co-host, Mike Bruno, and I bring you tips, tools, and strategies from our own experiences and from the experiences of our guests, who are entrepreneurial thought leaders and real-life entrepreneurs, all to support you in making intentionally profitable and sustainable business decisions to live the lifestyle you desire. At Tap the Potential, we know you're longing to be freed from the constant demands of your business. You need a business that supports your life. And the problem is your business is taking over your life, leaving you frustrated and discouraged. We get it. At Tap the Potential, we believe work supports life, not the other way around. We understand you're paying a team, and most likely you're still having to do it all. There should be accountability. It should not be this hard, which is why, through our proprietary coaching system, we help thousands of business owners like you have more time for what's important to them and grow profit by 300 to 800%. Here's how we do it. Start by taking our assessment at tapthepotential.com/assessment. You'll get an overview of your current quality of life as it relates to your business and next steps needed in your business to improve your quality of life while strengthening your business. Next, meet with our success team lead to debrief your results. Then, join our Better Business, Better Life program. By the end of your first year with us, you will have more time for what matters to you and more money in your bank account than you've ever had before. So, if you're ready to take your life back, the next step is to take our assessment at tapthepotential.com/assessment. Profit designers, do you have systems in place in your business? Are they skeletal systems? Well, on today's episode, I get to interview David Jenyns about his latest book, SYSTEMology. Now, David was on the Profit by Design podcast about a year ago this time, episode 54. And if you haven't listened to that yet, I really encourage you, after you listen to this episode, go back and listen to episode 54. On that episode, he revealed a powerful life experience that really speaks to the power of having systems in place in our business, particularly when it comes to setting our businesses up to take a 4-week vacation. I consider David to be the master of systems. And today we get to really dig in about his new book, SYSTEMology. When I got to read the book as an advanced reader, there were some insights in there that blew me away. I've always been a big fan of systems, but this book has convinced me that there is so much more that we can be doing in our business with respect to systematizing our business and really reaping the benefit. And what's really interesting is David is going to show us how it doesn't have to be a situation where we work harder to reap those benefits of systems. David's entrepreneurial journey begins back in his early 20s when he sold Australia's most loved sporting ground, the Melbourne Cricket Ground. Since then, his business experience spans from franchising retail clothing stores to founding one of Australia's most trusted digital agencies, MelbourneSEOservices.com. In 2016, he successfully systemized himself out of the business, hired a CEO, and stepped back from the daily operations. Through this process, he became a systems devotee, founding System Hub and SYSTEMology. Today, his mission is to free all business owners worldwide from the daily operations of running their business. Profit designers, at Tap the Potential, we are on a mission right now to be a positive force in social media during trying times for all of us entrepreneurs. In that regard, I would love it if you could help us out. We really want to get behind any of you who are doing good things in your communities, showing up and leading with love. If you are doing something to keep your team together during this time and you're sharing it in social media, or you come across another entrepreneur who is being a gift from their gift in some way that you notice, please use the hashtags lead with love and be a gift. Our team at Tap the Potential is on the lookout in social media for those hashtags, and we will be reposting those social media posts from the Tap the Potential social media. Let's all lead with love, be a gift, and shine bright during these trying times. David, welcome back to the Profit by Design podcast.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be back. I mentioned right before we started, I feel like I'm on a couch, just sitting down about to talk to my doctor and have some therapy here. So looking forward to it.
Yes, we're here with Dr. Sabrina, and you're in the middle of a book launch. And book launches can be very exciting, a lot of fun, and some stress, right?
Yes.
Unless you have a system.
Even if you have a system. I almost feel like we should start off with the most embarrassing moment of the launch that I would have preferred to have buried deep and not talk to anyone about, because I'm very particular with the way that I organize things, and everything runs very smoothly and the team's really rock star. And I had been leading up to this book launch. It took about 3 months to organise the actual launch, not the writing and all the rest of it. That's even considerably longer. And we'd lined up about 40 podcast interviews, and me being in Australia, the time zones are always a challenge. So I'm getting up at 5 a.m, I'm going to bed at 11 and 12 o'clock at night. And everything had been going so smoothly until last week. I had lined up this interview with this gentleman. I had already appeared on his podcast. And he said, I love this. I want you to come and run something for my high-end mastermind group, and I'll schedule everything. It was going smoothly. He started emailing his database. I'm seeing it pop up on social media. And it was for 6 a.m. my time. Now, I have been running on empty now for the last couple of weeks coming into this book launch, and I'm quite particular with setting my alarms, and the alarm didn't go off, or I slept through. The night before I happened to have quite a rough night, and then it got to 6:40. It was meant to start at 6 a.m, and I jumped out of bed. I was in automatic mode because I don't like to let anyone down. And I thought, I've really got to perform here. I just threw on a shirt, didn't have a shower, ran straight out into the studio at the back here, turned on all the lights, and then jump into the webinar. I didn't actually realize, because I've not done that before, how long it takes my brain to actually warm up and think. Now, I've said this message about systemology hundreds of times. I know the steps inside and out. I know the stories. I know how it all comes together. And I hop on, and Rick Hadriva was the gentleman running the group. And he saw me come on, and he introduced me and said, look, we're running towards the end of this. Maybe you could... He sensed something wasn't quite right. I looked a little bit like a vampire. I was pale. I was, it didn't look quite right. And he still gave me the space to try and talk about the book, and said, when does the book come out? And real pro at the whole situation. But my brain didn't function. Took me back to that moment, the very first presentation that I did, however many years ago, and you've got it was just like crickets in my brain. No, I couldn't hear anything. and then I started stumbling, which is rare for me. I'm more of a talker, and it was so bad. And then he quickly sensed that something was up. He said, look, something's obviously, going on in your world. How about we just leave it right there? Now, all of this is being recorded. Within 5 minutes, we kind of end it, and I hop off, turn around, and my wife's standing out on the back step, and she looked at me as though, is everything okay? Because I ran out of the house like it was on fire. And I went in, and I'm like, this just happened. I felt so bad about it. And then the first thing I said to her was, I hope no one ends up seeing this video. I said, I want to bury it down and not have anyone see it. And then made a coffee, and then Rick sends me an email. And the email says, the call obviously didn't go as planned this morning. But before you came on, while we were talking to the group about, sometimes as a business owner, you can be running a lot of things and you don't always perform. Even if you're at a top level, there will be times when you drop the ball. And he said, it's a great call. I'd love to share the recording. And my stomach just went, just dropped through the floor. I mean, I felt like I'd let him down anyway, so I couldn't say no. And then I thought, okay, well, yep, you can share it. And I said, look, can we re-record what we were meant to do? Because he had a volunteer and we were going to take them through the SYSTEMology model. And then I said, you can share that with it, just so I don't want someone to watch that video and miss the message because they're too focused on my poor delivery. So I said, can we do that? And he said, yes, that's fine. And then I thought, what happens if I really leant into this? So I took a clip, a 3-minute video, and I posted it on my social media account of me going, and it was so embarrassingly bad. And you should have seen what happened. Like, I had so many people jump in, and the comments around, oh, wow, it's like you're, one, it's very revealing. Someone commented around that vulnerability and Renee Brown and her TED Talk and that idea. I mean, I just jumped straight into the story. I wasn't even expecting that, but you are my therapist, so I'll take a breath and I'll let you talk.
David, I am so touched with what you're sharing here and your vulnerability in sharing it. It's such an important experience for you and for all of us to reflect on as entrepreneurs. What really stands out to me is how hard you've been pushing yourself through the launch. And you are a quintessential professional, and you really are at the peak of what you're delivering, what you're sharing with the entrepreneurial world. And to be in the middle of a launch and to have that happen, it's something that can happen to any of us at any time. And this is what entrepreneurs go through. I mean, we push ourselves. There are periods of intensity in what we do. And I think more so than most human beings, us entrepreneurs, we just think we can go, and we have no limits. Like somehow we can shortchange our sleep for days and weeks on end, and we'll be okay. And just like you said, this is a message you've delivered for many years, and you've refined it and honed it, and you know this. And then to freeze like that is just what happens when we are exhausted, right? You were exhausted. Your body it was saying to you, David, enough. I can't go at this pace. Your brain and your willpower was saying something totally different, but your body was saying, I'm shut down. We can't push this anymore.
I was going to say the lesson for me, and then the lesson that I was then able to teach my team is another. Like, there's been a whole lot of ripple effects that has happened off that moment. And there's another team member on my team who's probably worked with me the closest over the longest period of time, his own harshest critic. And he's incredibly tough on himself, and he wants to execute to this certain level. And I always try and encourage him, like to let him know how great he's performing and that he is at the top of his game and how impressed I am. And there's no need to beat himself up. And the path to success includes, like, the only way to get really good at something is to drop the ball and then pick it back up again and see how you respond and improve and develop. Like, you can only have those failures to actually improve. It's a rite of passage and part of the journey. So here I am preaching that to him. And then really, it's almost like he's a reflection of me. Like, I was doing that. So I was leading by that example. And to have him see me do that, and then he reached out to me personally, unprompted, and wrote me this big, long message around how that was a huge lesson for him and the insight for him to kind of go, oh, wow, I always see David nail it. He didn't nail it this time. And it's not the end of the world, and that's okay. And what can we learn? And like a lot from it, I think. Yeah. And I just went off on that little side tangent there.
So, when it comes to what we're putting out there, David, as entrepreneurs in social media and what people see about us, it's often a one-sided view because we're showing up at our best. You and I both have been at this for a long time, so we have systems in place and we have team in place supporting us.
And what you're sharing, I think, really speaks to that even when we do everything we can to set things up for success, sometimes things happen. And you being awakened in a sound sleep and oversleeping, missing the appointment, and then just waking up from a sound sleep, you just wanted to get out there and deliver. And your drive and your confidence that I can do this. And your body was just saying, no, your brain wasn't able to function and you weren't able to do that. We all have our limits.
Yeah, I think as I was reflecting on what happened as well, like I talk about in the book about just being open and ready for opportunities, this whole idea of systems and process and structure, having all of that in place. So when the opportunity presents itself, you can take advantage of it. What I'm starting to realize as well is it swings both ways. There are going to be times when things don't go in your favor and you need to have the systems and the processes and things organized and in place so you can then deal with that. So regardless of what the situation is, it is about just presenting up to the moment as best as you can, being as prepared as you can, and then just dealing with it in the moment. That's obviously when I wrote the book, and we talked about it on the last podcast with the Michael Gerber story, and that being a huge opportunity to fall in my lap. But there have also been plenty of downs, probably more downs than there have been ups.
Well, and that's the thing, though, is we learn from our downs. We learn from those moments when things don't go right. And I know for us at Tap the Potential, some of our strongest systems are in place because of something that didn't go right in the past. I'm curious to hear what your personal takeaway is and what you're doing differently, if anything, as a result of that. And then on a systems side of things, have you done anything differently?
I didn't make any radical changes because one of the first things that I realized, I suppose the change was to go, that's okay. Occasionally we will make the mistakes when we're playing at the level. And then I started to think in terms of high performance sport teams. And I was imagining baseball and how many times someone needs to strike out. Because it was funny, one of the comments in the thread when I posted it on Facebook mentioned something about, this underscores the importance of getting appropriate sleep. And I said, yep, appropriate sleep is definitely important. There's also times, like I'm imagining in a big sports game, you train up to be ready to play at that level. And then I was playing, and in the game, I'd done all of the training beforehand. I'd prepared for that moment. And even when you're in the game, there's going to be parts when you swing out, when you miss the ball, and that's also part of playing at that top level. So even with, more appropriate sleep, with maybe better structure, I'm still not sure. I can't completely eliminate those circumstances. They are going to pop up. So a big part for me was just being more accepting of that, realizing the example that I needed to set for the team. And I mentioned earlier about the team member and how it was almost a reflection of myself and beating themselves up. And I thought, no, this is also part of that process. So I didn't make any big structural changes. I'm sure that lesson will be burned into my brain to check and double check. And I have a triple check, which is usually my wife. She'll say, have you got an appointment or anything in the morning? And she'll have her own thing set. And it was funny as well. She felt guilty that she didn't wake me up. So maybe I need to send her for another session to come and chat with you as well.
Talk about her guilt. That just speaks to that she's so invested in what you're doing and wants to support you in being successful and setting you up for success. What I'm really struck by what you're saying, because the reality is that when you're playing at a bigger level, the impact of when things don't go right is much bigger, but it's still the same actions or the same things that happen. We're still human. So no matter how much training we do, and no matter how much we try to set things up to be successful, things will happen and we're not going to be perfect. And it's coming to terms with that. And I hear that, like, you've come to terms with that. You've accepted that. And just, I think the ouch factor and the sting factor is a lot of people saw that. And if you weren't playing at that level, it might have just been a few people who saw it. But now lots of people saw it. So it feels worse just because a lot of people saw it. But really what I'm hearing is a lot of people saw you be human. And hopefully many of them on some level said, wow, it's okay when things don't go just right.
There were like comments that popped up that had said things like, oh, that's one of the reasons that we like you so much, is that open honesty, transparency. And the other thing I realized as well, when those things come up, you actually need to, they're more gifts than they are something bad appearing, because you can then take that and then roll that into the narrative and the story. So that then became a theme as part of the launch. And then we had the follow-up recording with Rick, and then we got to send that out to our audience. And, we had a book launch ambassador group that you were part of, and I got to share inside there that story. And we had other things pop up, like we had submitted the Audible version or the audio version of the book through to Audible like months ago, and expecting it to get published, a few weeks at least before we went live. And Audible has a backlog apparently of like 6 months, and their customer service is absolutely horrible. And trying to get an audio book, you just sit in the queue. So I started planning and preparing and going, right, how do we roll that into the launch and then make that part of it? And we ended up releasing the first couple of chapters of the book on our podcast, on the Business Processes Simplified podcast, so that people could still get a little bit of a taste. And I said, I'm doing this because we weren't able to do it on the Audible. So that was another one. And we had other situations pop up where on launch day, we had problems with Amazon consolidating the links. So in some countries, even though it was print on demand, it was showing out of stock. In other countries, it was showing that it was going to take 2 months to ship. And there were these little things that kind of went along. I used that and ended up sharing that again as part of the group and getting people behind that. So as the punches and, things start coming towards you, you kind of take that and then use that momentum. Mm-hmm. And that was another sort of further confirmation of the way to handle those situations.
Well, and I think that's such an important part of an entrepreneurial mindset, and that growth mindset is, as things are happening, as the challenges are coming up, rather than saying, I can't handle this, it's too much, it's overwhelming, why bother? Instead, it's this thinking of, okay, what's the opportunity here? This happened. How do we take these lemons and make lemonade? How do we turn this? And through each step, as you're describing all these different things that have happened, it's real clear to me you're paying attention to your readers, your audience, and you're looking for, how do I serve them? How can I turn this into an opportunity to be a gift from my gifts?
And that comes from early programming from your Jim Rohns and Zig Ziglar and Anthony Robbins. Many moons ago, I used to consume that stuff like it was going out of fashion, and I'd be listening to it morning, noon, and night. It's funny, I don't tend to listen to it nearly as much now. I'd probably even say maybe for about the past 10 years, but all of that early programming is still there. So that idea of delivering more than what is expected of you has always been, and you're rewarded for the value that you bring to the marketplace.
Absolutely.
So it's about bringing that value. So that's always, been very core to the way that I think about business.
And I think what's interesting is you said that was years ago when you were listening to that. I would imagine you have surrounded yourself, though, with people who think in this way, with other entrepreneurs, with that entrepreneurial mindset of what's the opportunity and how do we turn this into value and serve, and you have an echo chamber around you that supports that kind of thinking. And so one of the things I'm always aware of on the Profit by Design podcast is I hope that we are being part of other entrepreneurs' echo chamber and that resiliency and that mindset of resiliency. I mean, right now, the things that are going on in the world with COVID and the challenges that entrepreneurs are facing and enduring, they can sometimes feel insurmountable. But when we have people around us who encourage us to think in that way and mirror that thinking back to us, like just talking to you, I'm getting all fired up and pumped up for my upcoming book launch. I'm listening to you talk about Audible. I'm like, yeah, we have our Audible ready to go. It's going to get uploaded in the next couple of weeks. And, we've had to push our launch back to November, but it's different circumstances. Now I'm thinking, well, I guess that Audible's not going to be ready with the launch.
Well, there was a happy ending to that. After all that, they published it because we sent an email through we didn't get any communication with them. They're horrible with their communication. But the night before, it appeared. So I had so many stories of people saying it was taking months, and we were worried because we had no word, but then it did go through. So submit it straight away and then submit a ticket and say, this goes live on this day. What can I do to make sure that it's live?
Well, thank you for that pointer. That is really good to know. And I just want to throw out, as we're having this discussion, our listeners may not be picking up on this, but some background about us recording this episode. We've had to do this in 2 recording sessions. So we started our conversation a week ago, and the hurricane was coming through, and I had lost power previously the night before. And I had told my team member, Melissa, I said, give David a heads up. I fully intend to do this interview, but we've been having power go in and out. And so there's a possibility. So sure enough, when you and I started our conversation, 10 minutes in or 15 minutes in, we lost power. So we rescheduled for today. In the meantime, when you and I came back on the call, you said, Sabrina, you look like you're in a different location. And I said, yes, because when the hurricane came through, we've lost power in my home, and that's where my office is. And so we've been without power and internet for over a week. It looks like it could be days, even longer, till it's restored. So I've moved my family. We're in a different location just so that we could keep business going. But I think, that's the thing about entrepreneurship is we just look for, okay, this is in front of me. Now, what do I do with this? How do we make this better?
And then you had there's the knock at the door from the census person, and the dog was going wild.
Yes. As we started recording, I saw someone come up the driveway car, and I'm like, I don't know who's coming. This is not my house. I don't know who's here. And so I told David, I said, I think we're going to have a knock at the door and the dog is going to bark. I have no control over that. So we just, paused things. I handled the situation, and we're back. So, we have the luxury. We can edit a lot of the chaos out of this episode, and we probably will. We'll try to make it as clean as possible. We have that luxury to edit these things. And yet we don't always have the luxury in real life to edit. We have to just kind of go with things as they are. And one of the things that I'm so aware of, as I personally have had to up my office and everything that I do, is I've designed my business so that it can run from anywhere. And I did that years ago because I have aging parents and I was living far away from them. And I knew if I needed to be able to fly on at the last minute, I could do that. So I've had that system in place in my business, or the multiple systems that allow me to do that. And that's really served me well through the hurricane experience. Today, I was talking with my team members, and I said, I'm really aware that in spite of the systems that we have in place in the business, we're not always using the systems. We still rely on remembering things in our head. And sometimes there's knowledge that only one person in the business has. The redundancy isn't there. And with the hurricane, I really want any team member, for if they were in a situation where they had to not be available to work for an extended period of time or even a couple of days, that they know that our systems are in place, things are documented, and someone else can pick up where they left off, and they could just go do what they needed to do and be present with their families or whoever needed them in that moment, and things would hum along okay. And that's the beauty of getting these systems in place in our businesses and using the systems once they're in place.
The final chapter of the SYSTEMology book, it ends up being the epilogue. I had another unfortunate event fall into my lap. And how we responded as a result of being systemized is really the takeaway. I had built up a digital agency, owned it for 13 years, called Melbourne SEO Services, based here in Melbourne, Australia. Quite successful, worked in it for about 10 of the years before I systemized it, hired a CEO, stepped out. She ran it for 3 years and was really the perfect person to run it. She was the yin to my yang. It was delivering profits every single quarter, and I had no intention of ever really touching it other than, I just check in with her usually about once a month. We'd look at the KPIs, set the strategy, and it was just a nice little business that chugged along. And then she got the message out of the blue that she had to fly back to the States because she's based here in Australia but family in the US. So she had some family things she needed to attend to, got on the plane, flew over to Georgia, Atlanta, I think it is. And when she got back, she put in her resignation and she said, oh, look, I have to attend to some things. I'm going to have to move back to the States for some time. So I'm going to have to resign from the position. Now, this is as System Hub and Systemology are just starting to get off the ground. And I could just see without her, I'm going to get pulled back into that business. Even if I found the right person to take over and keep running it, it was going to be incredibly time consuming for me and take me away from the System Hub Systemology. And that's where my passion is at the moment. The digital agency, I'd lost the passion for that. And I found myself in that situation thinking, well, what do I do? And then I made that decision. I felt like it was an important piece for my whole Systemology to just go, okay, well, let's sell the business. And I think about what I would have had to sell if it was just me and I built this business around me and I was the job. There wouldn't be anything there. I would really just be selling a job, and maybe I'd sell it to another owner-operator, maybe, if I could find someone. But the situation we were in, within the first month, I had 2 offers on the table for a multiple of earnings. And when the person who we ended up selecting who bought it, they cited 2 things. They said, I bought it for the financial performance, and I also bought it for the fact that because you haven't been in it for 3 months and it's been managed and it's been systemized, I'm buying the system. So that's really where that value was. And I just had that moment where I was like, oh, wow, you don't know what is going to happen. I couldn't have forecast that situation even if I wanted to. But what systems does is it gives you options, and that optionality is really where the value is. That then became an option for me, whereas previously I wouldn't have one. So that was like a real reinforcing one for me as well. This kind of feels like bad things keep on following me around, but again, I think that's just because I'm talking to Dr. Sabrina. I have to just talk to someone.
Digging into the past and all the challenges. And, it's funny, you're talking about all the bad things. Usually I have people talking about their wins and successes. So today we're going down a little bit different path than we do. But, the wins and successes, I really do believe they come from our challenges and they come from the learnings that we have. In Systemology, when I got the privilege of being an early reader, and I've been studying systems for a while because it's so key to what we teach our clients in the Better Business, Better Life program at Tap Potential. There were several big aha moments for me when I was reading the book, and I want to comment on them here. One of the things that I noticed when I first started systemizing my business and helping our clients systematize their business is if you don't have systems in place, or you have what I call skeletal systems, like just really not fleshed out systems, and you look at your whole business, it feels very overwhelming and daunting to figure out, where do I start? I know I'm supposed to put systems in place, but and then you start working on one thing, like, oh, I'm going to systematize the bookkeeping. And then I'm going to go over here and we're going to systematize delivery of services. And before you know it, it's just like chaos everywhere. And I noticed a while back that when we focus on the sweet spot of the business and, kind of harking to the pumpkin plan here, it becomes real clear that you don't have to systematize everything in the business. You just focus on certain key things. The aha moment that came for me when I was reading Systemology is that about 20% of your systems deliver the value in the business, that 80-20 principle. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, I love hearing the different insights that people pick up as they go through the book as well, because sometimes, like, I've written it and rewritten it and tried to, even though it appears quite simple, I often find the things that are most simple are the ones that have had the most work on it, because you decide what needs to stay in and what needs to go. So the 80-20 one is definitely one of the big issues. Is people look to the poster child of systemization and systemized business when they think about systemization. So they think about McDonald's, they think about Subway, these franchise type businesses, and they have the big thick manuals of all of the systems, and you've got these McDonald's universities or whatever they call it. And that can be incredibly overwhelming to someone to think, oh, that's what I need to create to systemize the business. And as you said, as long as we can have the business make money without the business owner, That's the piece that we need to get right, because if we can, without any form of key person dependency, the business owner is one thing, but really it's anyone. Like you were saying, if any team member goes, we just need a way that the business can consistently make money. Because if the business can't make money, you don't have a business. So that's a really great way of focusing in on where that 80-20 is. And I just got an email late last night, and it ties in well with this, where someone else shared one of their key insights. And they said, when I thought about systems all this time, I've been thinking about it wrong. I'm trying to systemize what's not working, and I'm trying to re-engineer and create a bit. Whereas they said, no, the book is so obvious. You start by systemizing what is working, take the best bits, and then make it consistent. And for him, that was, again, it's the 80-20, find the 20% and then get everybody doing that and delivering to a certain standard. And if that's to do with the business making money, which is part of a process called the critical client flow, then you're operating right in that sweet spot.
That is such an important point, because when we're in the weeds of our businesses as business owners, oftentimes what pulls us into the weeds are all the problems that come up. And so that's what we see in front of us is all the problems. And that's our natural tendency, is we need to create systems to keep these problems from happening. I mean, how often have we sat in meetings in our teams and said, we've got to get to the root of the problem and fix it from there? I stumbled upon something when I started coaching years ago, and I was trying to figure out, well, what am I going to talk to my clients about as a coach? And that was asking about wins and successes. And so I would start every meeting asking about wins and successes. And it was a great way to get people into a positive mindset. It gets us into proactive problem solving. But one of the big benefits of that is it forces us to pay attention to what's working in our lives and in our business. And that the next question is, if this is working, how can we have more of it? And what are you doing that's making that work? What is your team doing that's making that work? That's the opportunity for systematizing. And in my experience, one of the things I've noticed is when we start systematizing the wins and successes, the problems become fewer and fewer. So we're not necessarily having to get into the root of the problem and, fix it at the base level, because the systems that get put in place prevent those problems from happening. So we inadvertently get there.
And I think I was going to say, and there is a time and a place to focus on the problems. So it's when you're just getting started, it's the 80-20. We have to focus on what's working. We systemize that. Your business is already functioning. As dysfunctional as it might be, you are still selling products and services and delivering, and things are actually happening. So just because we haven't systemized something and got a detailed process written out doesn't mean that thing is going to, it's going to stop happening now. So it's kind of already happening. So what we're trying to do is just lock in the pieces that are working and now go, great, this is the standard that we now need to deliver this piece to. And a bit further down the process, the SYSTEMology process, the last stage is the optimization stage, because business owners, they have a hurdle that oftentimes they have to get over when it comes to business systems. The founder is often that visionary, it's a leader, they're not necessarily detail-orientated systems people. So anything, and I often say that complexity is the enemy of systems and business systemization. So what we need to do is make it as easy as possible, because the business owner has struggled with it so long, and so has their team. What is the minimum viable product for getting something in place for your systems? And then later down the track, we can think about optimization. We can then start to build, a problems list when they pop up. And we do that throughout the week. We have a weekly meeting, and we'll make notes when things pop up that we need to talk about. It appears on that. And then when we have our weekly meeting, we just start at the top and we work our way through. And when we think about a problem, we think, right, is this like a once-off type issue, or is this something that's recurring? Oftentimes, if it's recurring, then we try and dig into, what is the system related to this, and where is the problem, and do we need to make a change at that level? But that The way that we've got that system gives it, we've got enough space and visibility to now go to work on it. But like you said, when you're first getting started, you're stuck in the forest and you can't see the trees because you're so in the thick of it. The base level of systemization gives you a chance, and in capturing what you're already doing, to at least, take a little bit of a elevated approach and view and kind of start to at least become aware of what's happening, which then makes it much easier to identify what the true cause of the problem is, so you go to work on the right things. Because the risk is, with systemization, there are thousands of things that you could systemize, and you might just get caught up in some busy work because you're creating a system to solve what you think is a problem, but really it might just be a distraction or a side issue, and you've got much bigger things that you need to be addressing. So that idea of systemology and that 80-20 is to go, where can we at least start?
Yeah. And, systemology really is a system for creating systems. You have laid out step by step, here's how you go about putting systems in place in your business. And I think that's so important for our listeners to understand that, if you don't have systems in place in your business, you really don't have a business. There's no value in the business. You want something of value that you can sell down the road, or that just allows you to have the freedom. If you don't want to sell the business, if you want to run it until you are not running it anymore, but you want freedom to be away from it, systems create that opportunity. The other point in there that was just this epiphany for me is that the business owner does not have to be the one creating the systems. And I have to tell you, it's funny that it was an epiphany for me, because when I look at what's going on at Tap the Potential, my team has no one has ever said, Sabrina, you shouldn't be doing this, but they have gently taken away the systematizing of the business from me. We have Amy on our team, who I call her our smooth operator. She really is the background, and she has everything humming. And there have been times, and you make this point in the book too, that once you have systems in place, it's really rarely ever wise for the business owner to step back in and fiddle with things. I speak to that. Amy has told me very gently and kindly, Sabrina, next time you need to address this or you have this change going on, please bring me into the loop. I need to know, because I know about where all the things run and all the things that are connected in the business. But the epiphany that really it does not need to be the business owner who creates the systems. Other team members can do this, and oftentimes they are better. It's better to have them do that. Speak to that, and what does that look like when we intentionally have other team members creating the systems?
I think the idea that everybody should be playing to their unique ability and their unique genius. So some people aren't wired to create systems and processes. And I remember learning this in that digital agency. We had a sister company, which is a video production agency. Video people, the most creative people known to man, and trying to create a system and a structure around how they edit and how they get set up for shoots and the way that they deliver to clients and not have project creep and, to deliver as expected for the client. It's a little bit like herding cats. So I use that as an opportunity to learn about people's strengths and what people are good at. So it's not just the business owner. Quite often, your best team members are just as busy as you are. So by you going to them and saying, you've got to document your systems and your processes. I've just read SYSTEMology and this is the way. You've got to follow this process. They might go, yeah, okay, it's important. It's not urgent. I'll put it on the list. I'll get around to it when I get around to it, because they don't have space. And you as the business owner, you might go, no, we've got to do this. And, this is a requirement of your job. And if you don't do this, you're going to get fired. Now, you could lead like that. It's a horrible way to lead. The approach that I identify in the book, which just plays to everybody's strength, is firstly to realize that it's a two-person job when you think about systemization. You've got the person who has the knowledge, and then you've got the person who does the documentation and creates the systems. And you find the person and the people who do each of those roles well. The person with the knowledge, just record them doing the task. It might be a Zoom, it might be a Loom, it might be an iPhone, it could be however you want to record it. Get them in the moment doing the thing that you want to capture. That makes it easy for them. They can talk through it as they're doing it. It's really not too much additional workload because they're doing the task anyway. Once it's recorded, you've got that second person who then watches it and then pulls out the key steps and writes the sub-bullets and gets that draft one. And what I found is everybody loves to edit. No one likes to write from a blank page. So if you send that first drafted document back to the knowledgeable worker, while it might have been pulling teeth to try and get them to write it, they'll be fine to edit it because they'll go, oh, you missed this step, you missed that step, and the whole process becomes infinitely easier. So that's one of the real key messages through Systemology, is making it as simple as possible for everybody and playing to their strengths. And I lead with the idea that the business owner is the worst person in the team to be systemizing the business. But it really speaks to some of the best team members and things like that. It's about finding the systems champion in your team, the person who loves it, your Amy. How do you find your Amy? Because she might be the yin to the yang that you're missing. And you might be trying to fit this square peg in a round hole. And maybe that'll be enough of the metaphors that I use. Yeah, it is just about finding the right person. The other thing you had mentioned earlier, and it popped up into my head, I don't think I've ever had a discussion with a business owner where they have said, I don't think systems and processes are important, or I don't think I don't need them into my business. Like, we've all come to the conclusion, and it's obvious that systems are important. So the question to be asking yourself is, well, why haven't you done it to date? The approach that you're taking, there is something there that is a roadblock and that's stopping you. So what we're looking for is a new approach, because we agree it's important. And that's what I'm trying to do with the book and even on this podcast. I want someone to listen to this and they go, well, I already know it's important. I've tried a few other different ways to get this done. I haven't been able to get it done or create a systemized business to the level that I want to. And that's okay. Now I want to try a different approach because I want to nail this. You, as a business owner, you can have a systems-centered business and not be a detail-orientated systems person, but you can still build that business.
That is, I hope everyone is hearing that, because 9 times out of 10, the business owner is not going to be the detail person in the business. In my experience, we give our clients an assessment called the People Map Assessment. It's a 4-quadrant personality measure, and you can be leader, task, free spirit, people types, and people are always combination types. So you can have a leader people, you can have a leader free spirit, leader task. So I'm leader task. I can be detailed, but I'm much better at strategic thinking, big picture, that sort of thing. And so when we bring clients into Tap the Potential, we give them the People Map Assessment. They're all business owners. It's a very small percentage that are going to be primarily task types. And it's the task types who are really great at creating systems, especially if they have a combination of leader task in there, because they can see big picture and details and really break it down. More often than not, business owners will be some combination of people type and leader type, or like leader free spirit, leader people. And so it just makes sense that it's going to be difficult for that individual to create systems because that is not their strength. So if we just own, hey, I'm not good at this. I need to find someone else on the team who wants to do this, who would enjoy doing it. And that's the thing, when we're working from our strengths, it's fun. It gives us energy. And it's a sure sign that we're outside of our strengths when we procrastinate on things, when we get frustrated, when we just feel totally overwhelmed by something. We're outside of our strengths. And I think that's what I hear from business owners a lot is, I got started on it, I didn't finish, I got overwhelmed, whatever. Not your strength. It's okay. We all have different strengths.
I used to think that I was really good at everything as the business owner because I had to be at the start. I mean, you start a business, you get it off the ground, you wear multiple hats. You're the salesperson, you're the accounts person, you're the person who does the work, you're the marketing, you're the HR person. And so I thought I was good at all of these different roles. And it wasn't until Melissa, she's the yin to my yang, she's my Amy. And when she came on board, I realized I'm not as good of a people person as I thought I was. And it wasn't until I only saw someone who was very good at that role that I realized I was too nice. I was Mr. Nice Guy. I was always trying to fix the problems, and she had the ability to create this safe space where she, would be assigning roles rather than tasks. So this person is now responsible for that thing or that department or that area. And then she gave the space for them to perform, and she would support them. And if mistakes happened, that was okay. It was still, she then coached the person through how to fix and improve that mistake. But it was different. Whereas I was more task focused. So I'd just be going, do this, and this. But then what actually ended up happening is once you get, 10 staff and you're doing that for every staff member, you don't have any time to do any of your own work because you're just too busy giving everybody else tasks. And by the time you get through to the 10th person, you've got to circle back around to the first person and start giving them tasks again. So that was a shift there. And then also being too nice and always wanting to solve the problem, what ended up happening was I would train staff to then depend on me, and I was doing them a disservice by not giving them the skills to problem solve themselves. And not only that, then they would always come to me. So again, it just further and further trapped me into the business. And I mean, I can solve a lot of the problems in the business, and so everybody just thought, okay, well, David can and will, so let's just get him to do it. And again, that does work to a certain size. But what happens is you reach that plateau and you hit that top of the ceiling, and then you just go sideways. And until you break the pattern, what is hard as well is those patterns get reinforced and encouraged because the business has grown well to a certain size by you being that type of person. But then that also is the thing that stops you growing through to that next level.
Right. We can only go so far on our strengths and our Achilles heels. And what's interesting to me is that our Achilles heels will undermine us from having the very thing that we want in life. And so, with respect to all these vacations that I take, I get a lot of teasing. Like, I called you and your team told me you're gone for 7.5 weeks. What the heck? You were just on a 4-week vacation and now you're gone 7.5 weeks. And what I've noticed, though, is as soon as I am back, there is that temptation to fall back into old ways, those old habits and patterns. And so I find it's very important for me to regularly step outside of the business or be away from the business and let the systems and the team solve those problems, because I'm a problem solver and I like people. If someone comes to me with a problem, I want to fix it for them, just like what you were describing. And so when we do that, we handicap our businesses. We stifle the growth of the business because that behavior will keep the business at a certain level. And so we need to be able to step away and let the business do its thing. We're going to be wrapping up here shortly. Just funny side note, David, I want you to put an end to some confusion that I've lived with for a long time. Is it systemize or systematize?
I say systemize. It has come up for you too. I have had some other ones. I had this TV thing it was in Australia, and I went along and she called it systematology. We were recording and we were live, and I didn't want to correct her, so I just kind of let it slide. But I have so many people who've watched that little clip afterwards, and they're like, systematology? What is this systematology?
So to be real clear, the title of the book is Systemology. We know that for sure. Systemize versus systematize. Yeah. I don't know. I use them interchangeably, but to be honest, I like systemize better. It rolls. It's easier to say, more efficient, and it's all about efficiency.
So the other question, is it spelt with an S or a Z?
Oh, yeah.
In the book, I did an S because on this side of the world, we do that. But if quite a few people have said, yeah, some people, they're going to struggle with that. They're going to read that and they're going to say that should be a Z. Yeah, different.
Well, that's the beauty of writing a book. You've written it, you've documented it, and now it is because you've documented it. So we're going to do something really fun here on the podcast. You've been very generous to offer to give some of our Profit by Design podcast listeners a signed copy of the book. And so what we're going to do is, for those of you listening, if you go and purchase the Kindle version of the book, and you send in a receipt to us, we will do a drawing in the next couple of episodes for 2 of you to receive a signed copy of Systemology. So all you need to do is right now go purchase a copy of Systemology on Amazon, Kindle version. Just take a screenshot, something that verifies your purchase of that. Email it to hello@tapthepotential.com. And I will draw randomly from the entries and we will get a book out to 2 of you.
It's a little bit of a win-win for someone as well, because then they can, even if they don't get the signed copy, they still win because they get to read the book. It's only a few bucks. And then if you get the signed copy, that's doubly awesome. And if I know sometimes people, because they're listening to this and it's a podcast, if you prefer to listen, we also did the Audible version, as you heard as well. So it is up. The Audible version is up. So that's another option too.
Fantastic. So are we saying that we will let people, if they want the Audible version, if they send in a receipt for that, you will upgrade them to a signed copy too? Okay.
Let's do it.
We will do that. I hope our listeners will buy the book, read it. And I think the key thing is to take action from it, because it's no good if we just read it and we don't act on it. And a couple of years back, I was at a conference and I heard one of the speakers lay down a challenge. And he said, what would your business look like a year from now if you created 1 system a week in your business over the next year? That thought blew me away. And I left there, I was, with conviction, I'm going to put 1 system in place in my business a week. I did not do that, but I got lots more systems put in place in my business as a result of that challenge, and it made the business stronger. So I encourage our profit designers to read Systemology. And then if you start thinking about getting 1 system a week or even 1 system a month, that's 12 systems in a year from now that you don't have. And what would your business be like? What would be possible for you if you had that in place?
I think if we can get anything from this episode, someone who's listening to this, is just to retest a lot of the assumptions that you might have around business systems. You may have come to a conclusion that I'm not a systemized person. My team won't follow systems even if I document them. I'm going to need hundreds of them. It's too complex. I'm going to have to systemize like McDonald's. If you've got any of this baggage, that's really what I'm hoping this episode can retest for you, to at least go, is that right? Where did I even pick that up? Is it just because I tried to do 1 system in 1 particular method and it didn't work, and then I said, oh, well, it's not for me? Well, of course that's going to be the case, but they're important, so let's get out there and do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, let's make it easy. And Systemology, definitely, you have made this easy for us, David, and I really appreciate that. So just to recap, go order the Kindle version right now on Amazon. Send in your receipt to hello@tapthepotential.com, or you can get the Audible version, and then you'll get entered into a drawing for an upgrade to a signed copy of Systemology. 2 of you will get to win that. So thank you for being with us, David. Thank you for your patience through all the life things that were thrown at us as we recorded this episode. And I cannot wait to hear from our profit designers, their takeaways from this episode, and as they read the book, what's changing in their life because of Systemology.
Perfect. Thanks for having me, Sabrina.
If your business is taking over your life and you're ready to take your life back, Tap the Potential's Better Business, Better Life program could be just what you're looking for. By the end of your first year in our program, you will have more time for what matters to you and more money in your bank account than ever. Get started. Take our assessment at tapthepotential.com/assessment. Thank you for spending time with us today. Join our conversation in the Profit by Design podcast Facebook group. Share your thoughts on today's episode, ask us questions, and let us know what you want to hear about next. Visit our website at profitbydesignpodcast.com to access resources from our sponsors and tools we've created for you. Subscribe to the show on whatever platform you're listening to right now. There's a subscribe button right there. Go ahead and hit it so that you always get a notification when we release a new episode. And finally, share our podcast with a friend if you know a friend who would enjoy it. Thanks again for listening. This is real life business. Keep your chin up, keep moving forward. You got this.